Okay, so I'll take it again. Benjamin Godwin was an IT professional with over 15 years experience. He has been successful in delivering complex IT-enabled business change projects in various sectors in the United Kingdom. Ben has worked in the legal sector for the last 11 years, where he has implemented digital learning solutions for the delivery of legal training. He's a certified digital product manager and a business analyst with a master's in information systems design and a BA honors degree in business administration. He's passionate about learning and implementing new technologies, including AI, to enhance business solutions and finance processes. Ladies and gentlemen, um, the person we have speaking to us this evening, kindly do me a favor if you are not speaking to at this point no one is speaking, so kindly mute if kindly help us and mute. So the person we have speaking to us this evening has a wealth of experience that is going to, things that he does and he charges thousands of pounds for, he's going to do for us free tonight. So I'm excited about this and I'm looking forward to learning, some new things that is going to help me to be more effective and that would help me not to burn out because I do a lot and the threat or the risk of burning out is real. So, Benjamin, thank you, and please take it over from here.
Thank you, John, for that introduction, and thank you also for giving me this opportunity. Good evening, everyone, and I hope you can all see my screen. Yes, it's good to join the Flex community. This has been going on for a while, and previously I've been here talking about AI and other technology and IT stuff. But this is totally different. But as John said, in your professional career, you don't just do what you're trained to do, but aspects of burning out also come into place. And so the goal for today's session is we are going to develop some strategies on how to get important work done whilst protecting your energy levels and well-being. And the key learning objectives that we will go through is first to understand what burnout is, the causes and its symptoms. We're going to learn some strategies on how to reduce work overload. And then I will conclude with a simple, practical, actionable plan to protect focus and recovery. So, as you know, I like my sessions to be interactive. So, what I want you all to do at this stage is, in a word or phrase, just tell me what comes to your mind when you hear burnout. And John, if you could read out that for me, that would be great. So what comes to mind when you hear burnout? I'll give you a minute to do that. And John, just read the answers, the responses you get.
Yeah, will do. Okay, I see overstretched. I see weariness,
Mm-hmm.
extreme exhaustion,
Okay. Okay, I like the responses coming through. Any more?
exhausted, when one
Exhausted.
cannot deal with the pressure of keeping all the balls in the air. I like that.
Yeah.
Tiredness,
Mm-hmm.
not understanding your body,
Good. These are great responses. Now,
prolonged stress.
great. Thank you for the responses. Those are all great responses. So I think you can all see my screen, and the picture there tells the story. I like to use pictures, images, because I believe they tell 1,000 words. But one thing I want to highlight here is that burnout is not a personal weakness. It is more by the fact that you're good at what you're doing, but your job demand and the available resources aren't there. So there is a mismatch. So burnout differs from mere stress in that it often involves a deeper sense of hopelessness regarding the work situation. While it can feel like depression, it is specifically tied to the occupational context. So I'll just share my experience. Back in 2011, I just started a new role in a sector that I was totally new to. This was housing. So I'd moved from government sector into housing. And being a business systems analyst, it's not just about being responsible for the systems, but it's also understanding the businesses, the business, because understanding the business processes is quite key in that this is how you manage things. So I remember when I started, there was a lot to learn. I just thought, oh, well, they're just going to be collecting rent. It's housing units, tenants, residents, collecting rent, and that was it. Oh boy, I was so wrong. There is just so much for me to learn. The eviction process, Section 21, engaging with maintenance staff, and also they had like a community engagement team who engaged with their residents because it was quite key that they supported them in things like finding jobs, doing their CV. And even though it's a housing association, you question why do they need to find them a job? Well, if they didn't have jobs, they will not be able to pay their rent. So I had all these stakeholders to engage with. So in the first 3 months when I started this job, there's just so much for me to learn. And anytime I got home, I'll just log on and carry on work. And sometimes I'll even skip dinner. And then one evening, my daughter was then about 6, came to me and said, Daddy, why are you working? Why are you always working? And I think at that stage, the penny dropped that I was really overworking myself. But it wasn't because I was incompetent, but because I didn't have the resource. And when I say resources, it's the knowledge, the understanding. There's so much for you to get your grasp on. I don't even know if you've experienced this, and you sit in a meeting and you think they're speaking a different language. That's how it sometimes felt because they're using a lot of terminology and things that you need to grasp. So it was a situation that I went through, and this is what you normally identify as occupational burnout, where you have the sustained high pressure lot job responsibilities without adequate time to recover. And you can tell from the picture that I put out there, you can see how they all look so exhausted. They are working late, there are deadlines to be met, and that isn't right. So just look at some of the key aspects of workplace burnout, having a physical and emotional exhaustion, always feeling drained, cynicism and detachment, developing a negative or indifferent attitude towards one's job, colleagues, or clients, just having that attitude of deep distrust towards the sincerity and motives and goodness of others. You feel that you're even being set up to fail. You know. You have that reduced personal accomplishment, feeling as though tasks aren't insurmountable, resulting in you low productivity in the work you're doing. You just don't feel being adequate in doing this job. So let's look at some of the causes. Having unmanageable workloads consistently high pressure and unrealistic expectations, lack of control, not having that influence over the resource that you work with. Back to the example I use, not having that knowledge, not having the right team supporting you, lack of recognition. So this is where you're putting a lot of work, but no one is recognizing the work you're doing because, to be honest, it's not bringing the value they're looking for. And this in turn results in a poor work-life balance. You're working long hours without time to recover. So these are some of the common signs and symptoms, productivity slump, a decline in performance, increased irritability, being short-tempered with colleagues or clients, withdrawal, isolating yourself from your team members or responsibilities, and then disillusionment, just not having that passion or motivation to carry on working. So now I'm going to talk about some strategies that I have used and things that I think will be very helpful. So boundaries, setting boundaries and saying no. Applying some prioritization frameworks, putting in place some practical time strategies, and sleeping is very important. If you sleep a lot, doesn't mean you're lazy. It is important, and I'll tell you why soon. So, setting boundaries and saying no. It's very important that you communicate your work hours with your colleagues. I do appreciate we are all probably in different stages of our career, but it is important to be clear about, what you can do within your working day, your capacity. That needs to be communicated clearly. You also need to buffer time for interruptions and any unexpected. We sometimes get into a situation that, yeah, you might need to work a bit longer, but these are things you need to be planning for. And then finally, you need to learn to decline or renegotiate requests that exceed capacity. I know you'll be saying, oh, how do I tell my boss no? But I think what is important, you're not just saying no because you do not want to do it, but you got proof as to why you just cannot do so. So, for example, you show that you've got these tasks to complete, and as a result, it's going to take you this amount of time to do. No. So you have to be in that position to explain why you cannot, um, or you have to say no to a request coming your way. Explain the consequences as why you cannot take any more work at this time. These are quite important things, being able to communicate your capacity, what you can do, and also negotiate by saying no. Another thing too is, don't pretend that you can do it all on your own. We've got to learn how to trust and rely and collaborate with others. If you're the only person who was required to do the job, you not have a whole lot of other people working around you. So it is important that you trust and rely on your teammates, on your colleagues, and you all have a common vision to succeed. You're all working towards the same goal. So you need to be able to work collaboratively. Teamwork is important. And also, imposter syndrome is not a flaw. No. Having a self-doubt, it is human. And trying to be a perfectionist due to fear of being exposed and overworking often causes anxiety and burnout. So challenge your negative thoughts that you're not good enough because if you weren't, you wouldn't be in that job. You can try and get feedback from your colleagues or your line manager about your performance. and that would help you to overcome your imposter syndrome, particularly if the feedback is positive. So now I'm just going to talk about some prioritization frameworks that I've used, and some of you may be familiar with this. This is the Eisenhower matrix, and it talks about categorizing your task, your work, into what's urgent and what's important. You might ask, what was the difference? Well, urgent is something that is time bound, something that you need to do within a given time. You got a set deadline. Important, that is something that is impactful, something that you want to be taking ownership of. So break down your task and identify this task. Is it urgent? Is it important? If it is, then do it. If it's urgent but not important, then you can delegate. Delegate this to a team member, a work colleague. If it's not urgent but important, then schedule to do it. Because as I said, you want to be taking ownership of work that's important, that is impactful. And if it's not urgent and not important, then just drop it. Because if it's adding no value, it may sound important, it may be important to someone else, it may come your way, but you need to be able to sort of assess this task and see what value it brings. And if it's not urgent and it's not important, then put it aside, and whenever you get the time, you can do it if it's still required. Another prioritization framework is the 80-20. I'm sure some of you will be familiar with this. So this is saying identifying 20% of the tasks that deliver 80% of value. What is key here is that remember that doing more is not the goal. So again, prioritizing what is more impactful, what is urgent, that forms that 20%. And that's what you want to be doing to add value, not the other way around. You don't want to be putting a lot of effort just to get 20% results. So spending being so busy doesn't really help. So look at the prioritization framework I talked before, it will help you to apply this 80-20 rule. Finally, this is one used by it's the fire hose tests used by the MIT leadership, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So this prioritization concepts focuses on clarity over capacity. So when you're dealing with overwhelming flow of data, ideas, and requests. So this is lots of things coming your way. And simply, you cannot drink from a fire hose. And so you should stop asking yourself, how can I do everything? And start asking what actually matters. Doing a lot of activities does not necessarily translate to progress, as we saw in the 80-20 rule, but rather the value of the activity that truly matters. So you have to ask the right questions. So to pass this test, you use the 3I model to filter out distractions and only prioritize tasks that meet these three criteria. Is it important? No. Where does it come in? Is this a high level strategic significance? Is it impactful? And is it irreversible? So something that's irreversible, it means you need to really think carefully about that decision. If you cannot reverse it and you haven't thought it through, there could be consequences. So you can see with the 3I model, as I said, what really matters, what makes the difference? And if it's irreversible, think carefully. 'Cause if it's a permanent decision, you can't go back to that. So again, this is a prioritization framework that you can always apply when you're breaking down your tasks. Now let's try and develop some practical time strategies. As we've established, working longer hours often reduces quality and accelerates exhaustion. You can use Outlook calendar for time blocks or to carry out priority tasks. And that's what I usually do. You will go into Outlook, block out time, put all the tasks that you need to do. And you could do that for the week if you know the work you plan to do ahead, but at least do it for the day and know what you want to achieve in the day. You can also use templates to create a daily and weekly plan. And also, you could create a not to do list. Again, back to the prioritization. If you can drop a task that's been given to you, put that in your not to do list. And try and do some focus work by blocking time just to do focus work. And most importantly, avoid multitasking. Trying to do so many things at the same time uses a lot of energy and brain power, and you end up being less productive. We just don't have that capacity to process everything at once. We can switch our focus from one thing to another, but you can't focus on too many things at the same time because that is not how our brains are wired. Last year, I was on a training session, and this was to prove the point that we cannot multitask. I know that that's saying the same men can multitask, women can multitask, but after doing that, I realized it is really difficult for the brain to cope. So what we're made to do was to count from 1 to 26. And that is easy to do. And also say the alphabet, the 26 letters of the alphabet. So A, B, C, D, right to Z. Then the next bit was match the 1 to the first letter, 2 to the second letter. Okay. So you just try doing this mentally. So 1A, 2B, 3C, D. You see how your brain has to pick up two data sets. And then they said, try doing this backwards, even just starting from 10. From the 10th letter, match it, work your way up back to 1. And you see how quickly your brain struggles to compute because you are focusing on the one data set of letters and another data set of numbers. But if you do them individually, you count 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, it's so easy to do that. And same way by calling out the alphabets. So again, it just tells you that trying to do so many things at the same time is not very productive. So try and just focus on one thing at a time. And one strategy which some of you may have heard is the Pomodoro technique by Francesco Cirello. And this is how to sort of focus your time or put in work and focus on that work. So the Pomodoro technique is a time management method, and this was developed in the 1980s by Francesco Cirello to boost productivity. And this is done by breaking work into 25-minute, highly focused intervals called Pomodoros and separated by 5-minute breaks. So after four intervals, you take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes break just to rest. You can also customize this depending on how you want to focus the work. So instead of the 25 minutes, even though that's a standard, you can adapt intervals of example 50 minutes and work 10 minutes break to fit your focus style. But also, so when you look at this, the first you choose your task, you pick the single task, set the timer. These days you can have them all on your smartphones. Set it for 25 minutes. Work, focus on that task, solely on that task until your timer goes off. Take a short break, stretch, get water, and then repeat the steps 2 or 4 times. And then after you've done that, give yourself a longer break, a 15 to 30-minute break. See? And this is also very important because these days a lot of us are working from home. And just remember that sitting for too long, especially, those of us working from home, it can impact on the flow of blood in your body. And your brain needs good flow of blood to focus. And so you have to be taking regular breaks. And this is why the best way to work is to break a big task into smaller tasks and work on focus periods. And this will help you to avoid burnout by finishing one task at a time. Okay. Now, the final thing is sleep. And as I said, sleep is not for the lazy. And I'm sure we have some medical experts on the call, but medical experts have confirmed that you need at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep a day. If you do anything less than that, your brain ages faster and it damages your brain. And then also you will struggle to focus. And I know that from experience because 2 weeks ago, I had a bit of an emergency, had to go into A&E, go home at about 2. I had to be out of the house at 6, 7 because I had an important meeting at 9 a.m. As I was having that conversation, half the things that were being said were just over my head. So it is very important to have a good rest sleep because at that, what I experienced is I was thinking slower, I was losing my sharpness, and you kind of become forgetful to the point that you want to, sorry, what did you say? you know. And sleep, it's just human, it's natural. It is brain maintenance, and it does help to recharge your brain. It's also important that you eat healthy food because your brain needs energy to function well. And you need to also reduce the amount of social media that you consume, especially before going to sleep. On social media, experts have confirmed that it shrinks your attention span. It is very addictive, and so you can easily spend a lot of time just scrolling, which in itself is a distraction. You know, it is taking away time from doing more important tasks. You may think that scrolling on social media is a form of relaxation to help you sleep, but it is actually doing the reverse. It rather reduces your sleep hormone, melatonin, and increases your stress hormone, known as cortisol. So sometimes you realize that you wake up feeling tired. So at least give yourself 30 minutes break from your phone before going to bed. And during your work hours, put your phone out of reach to prevent any distractions. And this is what I've been doing for the last year. I always leave my phones downstairs. I go upstairs and sleep. When I'm working from home, I have my phones in one side of the room whilst I'm studying because, you can easily get distracted by messages coming through, WhatsApp messages, someone who shares something on Facebook. Before you know it, you're scrolling all sorts of things that can be very distracting. Okay. So now I'm going to leave you with a simple plan, to prevent burnout. And this is just going over some of the things I've talked about. So burnout is often systemic in the workplace. So advocate for reasonable workloads, clear expectations, and resource alignment. So back to the point I made, you need to be able to communicate what your capacity, what you can take on, and and provide clear expectations on what you can actually deliver. And also try and make sure that you've got the resource that you need to do your work. If it's the knowledge, if it's the team support, if it's additional budgets, whatever that needs, make sure you have that. Because as I said, burnout is not to do with your competence. It's more to do with the fact that you're not well resourced and you have that mismatch between your workload and the resource available to you. Design boundaries and buffer into your schedule. They're straightforward. Set your boundaries. Prioritize your outcomes over business. So as I said, it's not working long hours. It's what value you're bringing. So look at the task at hand and then make sure you look at what is important, what is urgent, and then focus. Manage your energy but avoid multitasking. As I said, we are not wired to do many things at a time, even though some of us may deceive ourselves that, yes, I can, but try and just do one thing at a time. And you notice at the end, you would have achieved more than trying to do many things and not completing anything. Schedule rest and self-care first. Sleep, as I said, sleep is important. Eat well. Also exercise, I've made this up. I try to go to the gym at least 3 times a week, and I see that really helps me. So try and find some form of exercise, even just taking short walks. During your work time to take some micro breaks, after you've done some deep focus work. Back to the first point, small organizational shifts. Again, amongst your team, people you work with, try and clarify your workload, bring some role clarity, what you're going to be doing, what this person is going to be doing. Sorry. And this will reduce burnout risk. Avoid distractions, social media. I'm not going to go over that, but avoid social media as that can be a big distraction. And finally, time management plus energy management will give you sustainable productivity. Okay. So I will bring my presentation to an end here, and we can have some open the floor for questions.
Wow. Wow. Thank you very
Mm.
much, Rosie. So thank you so much. Very insightful, very impactful, very clear. And I believe that everyone here has an idea what they're going to be doing differently. You know, uh, Multitasking is one of the big things that, most people deceive themselves into thinking they can do it and do it very well. I wouldn't exempt myself because sometimes I have my iPad open and the laptop open and I'm doing this here and I'm doing that there and trying to do all of them at the same time. So I have learned something from this presentation. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to pose questions, contributions. You want to share your experience, to also, help somebody learn. The floor is open for contributions, for questions. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat box and I will read it out. Or if you want to ask your question, you can either raise your hand or using the button, or you can just unmute. Once I see that if you're muted, it tells me that you want to speak, and I will call you to speak, to share your experiences as well with us if you want to share your experiences. One of the biggest thieves of our time these days is social media. Um, and it's a big challenge, big issue, for most people, both young and old, you know, both young and old. Now, because I would be very grateful if you can, share a few more thoughts and with a bit more essence on how we deal with this social media thief of our time because it's so serious, you know. Um, this social media
Yeah,
thief that steals our time.
yeah. I'm sure you've been aware of what's been going on in the news. You know, certain countries like Australia have already banned it for people under the age of 16. I know in the UK they've tried to pass that. That hasn't quite gone as it was expected. Because it turns out these social media, a lot of these platforms are being designed to be addictive. You know, this whether this was intentional or just to make it a product that people find value. I think now we are seeing the negative side of this, and it's not very great. I mean, it's self-discipline. It is self-discipline, you know. As I mean, John, I've told you there are times I go to our school platform, and because I don't often check it, I'll be probably about 400 messages there. Before I always used to be up, I used to always be, up to date, make sure, I know what's going on. And but apart aside from that, you are in a meeting. If you got your phone these days, because a lot of people work virtually, they feel they could be doing other things.
Mm,
And you're in a meeting, even people are in Bible study, and they're still on their phones doing other things.
mm,
Or in churches or wherever you are, maybe, But I think coming back, discipline, focus on what you need to be doing at that present time. And it's a device. Just throw, well, I can't say throw your mobile phone, just put it
yeah.
aside. It is difficult. It is difficult, but discipline is the only way.
Mm. So there's this concept of the principle of the now. I mean, being in the present, being in the now.
Hmm.
I'm sure that is something that can be useful when it comes to, these things, prioritizing and focusing your energy and focusing your efforts. Because
Yeah,
sometimes, like you said, you are in church, but you are somewhere else completely. Your phone is taking
exactly.
you into a complete different environment, a complete different space. And some of these things, when you look at them, you try to put yourself in the place. And so
Hmm.
your body is in the church, your mind is completely elsewhere.
Exactly.
So how would that approach also help us? How would that principle of being in the now
Yeah.
also be used to, help us in this?
Yeah, I read a book a few years back, The Power of Now, by this guy. And it is quite important that you focus. So in essence, what it says, you only have control of your present, your
Mm,
your current position where you are now. You can use the past, what has happened in the past as a reference point to avoid any mistakes. But you
mm,
can't really tell the future. You're planning for the future. So you should be spending 90% of your energy in your present state where you are now, because that's all you have control of. And with
mm,
this example, with this distraction, no, as I said, the only way I can see is being disciplined. Now, if you're going to use other tools within your phone where you can say, don't let me go on social media between this time. I know also software and apps are in place. People can use it to block their children's screening time. But as adults, if you're having to do all these things, then yeah, it's becoming a psychological problem. So, I know
mm,
I'm not a therapist. I can't really advice on how you do that, apart from the fact that, put the phone somewhere, switch it off if you don't need it, and keep it away. We are just too hooked onto these devices and it can take away focus. Yeah.
And what do you have to say about picking the phone when it rings? It's become like a baby that when it cries, you got to leave everything and pick it up.
I know it becomes like you go into panic. I know
Hmm,
when people forget their phones, like they
hmm,
leave the house and realize that, oh, they haven't got their phone. Your whole life is there. Your banking,
yeah.
your card, everything. I can't go to the gym without my phone because it's an app you need to scan and enter. But obviously,
Hmm,
there are other ways. If you get there, you've got some ID, they can let you in because they'll see you on the system. But I
yeah.
fully take the point. How do you leave your phone? They become part of our life. I mean, it kind of controls us to some extent
Hmm,
because we are
hmm,
so dependent on it for everything. You just
hmm.
imagine, my daughter lost her phone and gosh, you have thought there was a funeral in the house. But that's that's how bad it gets. Yeah.
Hmm, hmm. So we have a question here. I'll read it out. And a few comments here. But let me read this question out first. How do you stay disciplined?
How do you say stay disciplined?
Yeah.
I think it's important we work out put structure in our life. You know,
Mm,
what is your goal? That will be your starting point. What do you want to achieve? How are you going to achieve it? And if you need to achieve it within a time set, you find that you probably don't have time to be doing other things. If your focus is getting to
mm,
that point or doing whatever you need to do, you know. So I think, yeah, I mean, it comes back to you've got to be disciplined.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think one book that will be very helpful when it comes to discipline and all these things you are talking about, developing good habits and all that, is Atomic Habits, James Clear. He
Okay.
talks about building systems, So to stay disciplined, you build a system, you build a routine,
Yeah.
and you stick to it. So, this is the time I wake up. This is the
Hmm.
time I sleep. This is the time I put my phone away. This is the
Yep.
time I do that. This is the time. So it becomes a system that runs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it's haphazard, I'm doing this today, tomorrow I'm doing that, and there's no consistency. I think one other way of building discipline is consistency.
Consistency.
So you're
Hmm.
consistent in what you do. You decide that this is what I'm going to do. And then there's also this whole thing about reward, that
Exactly. I was
you
just going to
celebrate
say
little
that.
wins. Yeah,
That's
you
the point I
celebrate
was going to
little
make
wins.
about rewards. Yeah.
Mm,
If you know what's the reward at the end for you,
mm, mm.
So you
Yeah,
need to want that reward, be
yeah,
hungry for that. If
yeah,
you are determined to, it's a certification you know, or you want a job promotion or you want an increase in your pay and you have that focus that, you want to get to that point, you want to get into this position in your career, you put this structure in place and that helps you you know,
yeah.
I think sometimes just hunger for something that helps you put in that structure in your life to try and go and get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that question, John. There's a question here from Alex. It says, thanks for the insightful presentation in the area of thanks for the insightful presentation. In the area of work, those who always take up tasks and never say no are the ones seen and awarded as hardworking and best workers. This puts pressure on all to go the extra mile. How can this be managed to enable us manage our time and reduce burnout? Since everyone wants to be the best at work from both ends, the managers and the team. So there's pressure. That there are people around, and when you say no, somebody else will say yes, and they pile it all up, and you might end up getting burnt out because you take on much more than you
Yeah,
can,
trying to
you bite
impress.
more than you can chew. So what would be your advice? Because it's real. Because there are people there who will never say no.
hmm It's an
So how would
interesting
you?
point. The question is, you've got to be realistic. One, what is it that you are doing? Is this going to bring value? Is this something that you're going to be recognized for? Because if
Mm,
it's got very low level impact, I wouldn't bother. If someone else wants to do it, let them do it. I'll be more focusing on what I think is of greater impact and of importance. Um, and you have to be realistic. Yeah, sometimes you want to take as much, but like the fire hose test, you can't drink from a fire hose. You need to sort of prioritize. Is this important? Is this impactful? You know, make that decision. There's a reason why you're all working as a team. So if you can take on that job, then do it. But if someone else wants to take it, at the end of the day, where's the competition? um, you will be recognized for the most impact you do. So that's where I will go.
mm. So we should pursue impact, not just
See
accept
impact
every
and what importance,
assignment.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not about doing so much work because then it'd be sad, but you not even be recognized for your efforts. And that's why sometimes people become disgruntled or disillusioned because you personally know you're working hard. You're logged in, you didn't log off until 10 p.m., but nobody saw that you're still working up to 10 p.m.
Mm.
Everyone was chilling somewhere, having fun with their family, and you were up. No one recognized that. You know,
Mm,
I'm not saying that sometimes you need to put in these extra hours. Yeah, it's all team effort, but also know your capacity.
mm. Yeah, and I guess there are times that people take on all this work and they are not able to deliver effectively.
Exactly.
If you manage your workload and you deliver more effectively, any good manager will recognize the good work you do, as opposed to
hmm
piling things up and not delivering. So
Exactly.
thank you very much for that question, Alex. So
Yeah.
we're still taking a couple more. George, I see you're from muted. You have a question? Go ahead, George. If you have a question, uh, go ahead. Okay.
Mm.
So,
But just back to the point you just made.
mm,
So you take this where I think also the quality of your work is important
mm,
because I think it's worse you take work that you can't do and deliver poorly. I think you also need to think of your reputation. It is very
mm-hmm,
important. I would
mm-hmm,
like to present work that I'm proud of instead
yeah,
of rushing and providing poor quality work. So that is something you should be aware of.
yeah. That's very important. So, quality of the work you produce is
Mm.
important. So, you put premium on quality over quantity. Trying
Yeah.
to do so much and not delivering, effectively. Um, all right. So, any more questions? Any more contributions? Any more experiences? You know, someone muted over there. Someone unmuted. Also speak.
Yeah, George.
George, go ahead, please.
Yes. I just wanted to find out what do you do? There are times you have no choice than to multitask because you have two meetings clashing, and probably fortunately for you, one is online, one is physical. You have to multitask.
Mm,
What do you do?
I mean, just to start off, how can you be in two meetings at the same time? That in itself, it's not humanly possible. How are you going to be focusing in one meeting or the other? So let's take a situation. I know sometimes there's a meeting where you might not necessarily be participating. So you're listening into that meeting. But to me, if I have no contribution to make in that meeting, what I'll do is I'll find out from anyone who attend, or hopefully there'll be notes. These days we use a lot of technology. A lot of the meetings I go into, those that I'm in or I'm not in, you know, they get recorded or transcribed. So then you can see the meeting notes and you know what has happened there. So it's again about organizing yourself. I can understand you may find yourself in a situation, you know, John knows that we now have another meeting to be on. This is a
Mhm.
typical example, yeah, but we are here. We cannot be at that other meeting, you know. So whatever we miss out, we will catch up on that. So really, you just got to organize yourself because imagine there were two physical meetings. Which one would you go to? No.
Yeah.
Does that
I
answer
think
your,
that
does that
sometimes it,
answer?
Yeah, yeah, yes, I'm
sorry.
okay with that. I'm okay with the answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So sometimes it happens. I mean, I've been in that kind of situation a few times where, two phones, one is on one meeting, the other is another meeting. And you pretend that you are following both, but you might end up, it's like serving two masters. You know, you definitely will be more focused on one than the other. And obviously, if there's, like you said, if there's one that you have a contribution to make, you focus on that and make sure you do make your contribution. Sometimes you just make your voice be heard, and then that is it. You are done with it, and then your focus is on the other. But how effective
Yeah,
can you be is a question. So yeah,
exactly.
there is a question here. Let me pick that up and read. So okay, I think that's a contribution. Because it's unless you multitask, that's when you are seen working, and sometimes it's stressful. Okay, so I think it's still talking about the work situation where managers want to see their staff multitasking to confirm that they are hardworking. Um, but at the end of the day, if you get burnt out, if you get burnt out and stressed out, and you have to for whatever reason, be at the hospital or need medical care, they will find somebody else to come and do the job, isn't it? So you have to look after yourself so that you can continue to deliver the services that you deliver for the company. It's actually in the interest of the company that you are not burnt out. Am I right? Unless they don't care.
Yeah. I mean, why would I mean, this is flex, this is about leadership. I think a good leader would know how to delegate work in a way that you're not you don't burn out. You should identify these things that can cause. I wouldn't be impressed by someone, if I was line managing someone and they tried to impress me by saying that doing so many things. I ask, are you sure you're delivering? I want good quality. I want you to focus on one thing at a time. You know your capacity. Sometimes, yes, you can manage two things, finish one task, move on to the other. That is fine. But to do this just to try and impress, trying to be a perfectionist, this is going to lead to you burning out
Mm,
because it's
yeah,
just not how you should be working. Yeah.
yeah. So George looks at this from another dimension also. It looks at looking at a self-employed person,
Hmm.
a price work perspective. You're always going to say yes by getting the work due to you getting paid. So, we
Mm.
know, I mean, I'm sure you've come across people who have taken up your work and never delivered because they were overwhelmed. So, what would you say
Yeah.
to that? Because at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur, you can't reject business. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's true. You want to take business, but I think it's communicating in terms of delivery. And I think one of your first flex sessions, I think was Sally who talked about
Mm-hmm.
a website designer who offered to take up work. And she was very disappointed because obviously he didn't deliver on time or something along those lines. And
Mm,
it's your reputation, it's not so much, oh, you're taking something because we all want money, we all need money, we all try to take in as many jobs to bring in as much income. It's understandable. But then if I'm in that situation, do not put yourself in a situation where you end up not being able to deliver. I know of a
mm,
guy who claimed he could do something. He was given a high profile project. It cost the firm close to 1 million because he said he could deliver and he didn't deliver, and it caused a lot of problems.
Mm.
You do not want to put yourself in that situation because you do something like this, the industry is not going to forgive you. Your name will be dragged in the mud that you attempted doing this. You said you could do it, you couldn't deliver. Then they had to bring in more consultants to come and fix the problem. And this was because he was just trying to take as much as he could. So it is very important. I think your reputation is important. A good name is always better than riches.
Mm.
So think about it and be honest. If you can't do it, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's sometimes easy to say, but you also got to be honest because I would not be able to sleep well if I disappointed a client. It's not going to sit well with me. So think about that. Do what is realistic, or just clearly communicate. You want to secure the contract, fine. But communicate that, yes, let's negotiate. I'll try and deliver it to you by so and so, and just know what your timelines are. And even if you know you can deliver in 1 week, to give them 2 weeks. When you deliver in 1 week, they'll be more impressed and they'll come back to you. So it's all about negotiating your terms, your working conditions, what you can take on, making sure you're equipped to do the job.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. But I think the other way, I mean, I agree with George to the point that as an entrepreneur, you shouldn't be turning away work. What you can also do is to have subcontractors, or sub-consultants,
Yep.
whatever,
Delegate.
and you so that you can pass some of the work on to them, so that you can also make your cut and grow your business. So that's
Right. See, he
another.
wants all the money to himself, so he's not going to do
Some
it.
people are like that. Some people are like that. Okay, so we have a question here from Alex. Yeah, how can managers identify team members who are burning out so they don't overburden them? That's a very good one. How can you identify someone who's burning out?
Yeah. I
Hmm.
think that's why it's important to have regular one-to-ones with your line manager. You know, most places I've worked with, this is something you always do on a weekly basis. It's just, catching up. Because I think you should be honest on how you're getting on with any task that has been given to you. And, you know, good leadership is providing the necessary support to your reportees. So if you are in a place, don't suffer in silence, go up to your line manager, explain, and always have the evidence. That is what is key. So they understand exactly where you're coming from. Instead of just saying, this one I can't do it. No, that doesn't cut it. Why
Hmm.
can't you do it? You
Hmm.
know, show them the receipts. This is what I'm doing. This is what I've had to do. And this is this is critical that I finish this. When you talk that language with your line manager, they should be able to understand. Your bosses should be able to understand. It all comes back to teamwork. And I suppose when you use this, some of the free prioritization frameworks are highlighted, they can help you to assess how important and how urgent this task is. And sometimes
Yeah,
things happen, changes always happen, so then you need to reprioritize. That's understandable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So and I thought I saw Sally's mic was unmuted. I don't know if she wanted to say anything, but in the meantime, just to let you know, I've shared a link on a platform. We have a Friends Connect WhatsApp platform where the PowerPoint presentation for tonight will be put on, and the video will be put on there as well. So if you want to join that platform, please click on the link. It's been shared on the chat in the chat box. So please do have a look at that and click on the link and join so you can receive the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Ebo, do you want to say something?
Hi, John. Yeah, thank you so
Hi,
much.
Ebo.
I mean, it's
Thank you.
it's it's just my first time today joining this, and it's very,
Thank you for
very,
connecting.
very, very. I mean, I've been able to grab a lot of things, right, especially with multitasking. And when you are given multiple screens, you think that you can do a lot of multitasking. And I've come to notice that sometimes you open up emails trying to multitask, read from different places. And then just when he mentioned that you can multitask and then be very effective with multitasking, then I cast my mind back and then I realized that when I have read an email, dealt with it, and deleted it, it's no longer there to take up a minute of your time to go back and read through. And over the years where I've just been going back, I've had them done already, but it takes, even if it's just a minute that you go back to the same email that you've done already, you just gone back to it again. And then it's there, it's not deleted, it's there, you just go back to it, but back and forth like that. And I just realized that, yes, it's true. I haven't been able to multitask, except that I remember when I've been able to, pick one thing, do it, complete it, delete it off, pick it one thing, do it off. And I think just to confirm that, yeah, when they are looking at you to do a lot of multitasking, it's not really possible to be effective, very effective, and then multitask. The other point that I would seek your help is when you have taken on another person's, you're covering for somebody who's gone on leave. You have built up a consistent, way of working, and then you are needing to add on another person's activities. Is it okay to just stay one day to catch up and then be okay with the person's flow of work so that the next day you've built in that consistency to manage his workflow and yours as well? Or how do you deal with additional workloads with 8 hours working time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question with regards to how do you cover for others. You usually do a handing over. Again, it's where you kind of assess what can you take on whilst your colleague is away. What's important that are urgent that needs to be done whilst they are away. These are things you need to assess during a handing over. You may be working on the same project, but then you should know what is priority. Again, coming back to my priority framework, that is what you need to do because you know what you have to do. You got your own workload. You also need to cover theirs. Whatever is not important or urgent, can wait till they return. If it takes more than just you and other colleagues to help cover whilst your colleague is on leave, then you need to do that if all the task has to be done in their absence. You cannot take it all on. So again, it's just renegotiating. I know my capacity and this is what I can do realistically. Work as a team, be more collaborative. That's my suggestion.
So what you're suggesting, instead of one person picking up the other person's workload, the workload could be spread out. So
It
maybe
could be
more
spread
hands
out if you
can
can't.
also
Yeah.
be. Ebo, does that help?
Yeah, that helps. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I think in this situation, what I'm looking at is you have set of clients that you're familiar with. So they put these clients to you to manage. And because you don't want to introduce a new person who is now coming to get used to it, they want to maintain the same people who are taking over the extra work that is coming in. And it appears that if the person doesn't write up a very good handing over notes, then it's likely you're going to spend so much time to understand what the person was doing before you actually start with the work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Mm.
that
I
that
think
puts
the
you at a
challenge,
risk.
sorry?
Sure, I said that puts you at a risk because then you have to do
Yes,
extra,
yes,
so much more
yes,
extra over what you have to do already.
yes. And that's where I feel, do I need to sacrifice a few more hours in the day, maybe 10 hours in the day, so that it doesn't trickle down for the next day? I don't, trying to grasp the flow of work,
Mm.
or it's just okay to, as I said, because he hasn't done a very good handing over, you're a bit fearful. You're a bit fearful that you might not be able to pick out what is most urgent and very important.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to vary from place to place where you work. From my experience, normally, if someone is handing over or have to cover for a colleague, I'm working, myself and that colleague will be doing very similar roles. So we understand what is at stake, what needs to be done. I'm not sure which sector you are in, but you're talking about clients, so you may be in the banking or wherever you are. I could understand where if you don't quite know what's happening in one person, a client's account, then this is you having to get the knowledge, get the information, get the data, comes back to the resource. So lack of that resource, the mismatch will result in you burning out, which is not fair on you. So what do you do in this situation? You don't want to expose your company, you don't want to expose any risks to your company. You need to plan this properly. That is how we'll conclude. So you are not at a disadvantage. If you need to bring more
Oh,
people involved or escalate or get someone more senior, you need it's a bit difficult. I kind of hear what you're saying because sometimes we're in that situation where we are left to carry the can for the team and you're not quite sure what to do. But then why do you get yourself into that situation? Because when things go wrong, it's you it's going to be on. It's your credibility at stake.
yeah. So yeah, what I wanted to add was, since we're talking about clients, you may actually profile the clients and see which, obviously some clients are in quote more valuable, and so you'll be able to accommodate, the more valuable or the pressing ones and deal with it that way. I mean, in case you're not getting any extra help from elsewhere. But when it comes to client, that personal touch is always very important. That and so yeah, you can look at it that way. So thank you very much for that
Mm.
question. Very good question. And thank you for that response. So there's a question
Thank you
here.
too. Thank you.
We should be wrapping up in the next few minutes. It says that when is it burnout versus when is it laziness? And the person is asking for the parent of a teenage girl. When is it burnout? When is it laziness? Oh, sorry. Before you come to that one, I saw Sally had unmuted earlier. I don't know if she wanted to say something.
No,
Sally.
I didn't have any question. I think it's unmuted itself. So
Oh, okay, okay. I thought you were because you mentioned your name. I thought you wanted to
no,
clarify something.
no.
Okay, thank you so much.
I just wanted to
So,
make a contribution to the person who was asking about the leave of absence. So it's as
mhm,
you've all been contributing, varies from person to person. And I
mm,
can give a vivid example. I was on vacation last week, and my kind of work, before they'll hand over something to you, you have to be familiar with whatever your colleague who is absent is doing. And then you also have to check what you are doing that particular week to make sure you don't have any overload because you are supposed to be working 40 hours. So if what your colleague who is going for leave is excessive, then it wouldn't be wise for you to take over that. You should let your manager know that you have other deliverables coming up, so you'll not be able to handle it. And so it's very important for you to assess what you are doing, because your work comes first, and then let that person give you details of what is happening in their absence, and then you weigh and see whether you'll be able to handle it. If you can't, then it's important for you to let them know that you cannot do it by yourself, so they can get someone involved as well.
Mm,
So that's
yeah.
my little contribution on that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sally.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Pastor Sally.
Mm.
Right. So, guys, let's come back to our question.
Is it
When is it burnout?
laziness or burnout?
Listeners versus burnout.
I mean, how will we define laziness? I've given that burnout is where, you get exhausted from the work you're doing because you're not well resourced. It's not to do with your competence, it's not a weakness. Laziness, I think is just not wanting the desire to do. Now, if it's the desire not to do is because you feel you're not well resourced, then I'll not call that laziness. That's just you're burning out because you're not able to do that. But laziness is just not wanting to attempt. So I think it's quite a clear distinction. Lazy, I just don't want to do. I can't be bothered. I'm moving on. And if it's a teenager, then I know I've had a few of those, so I know. They just don't want to do it.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so very much. So we are wrapping up. We're wrapping up. So a few text messages saying thank you. Very impactful, very helpful. Thank you so much, Gozi. Um, and just to also remind you, I'll put on the link to our WhatsApp platform. The presentation will be shared on there. Kindly take note of that. And before we invite Kozi to give his closing remarks, I've not seen any hand up. I've not seen you muted. I've not received any further text messages apart from those that are saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So many of them. Thank you so much also for being here, connecting with us. So let's just take this announcement. Next month we are on again at the end of the last Sunday of May as well. We are on, and so this is 31st of May. 31st of May we are on, and we have Dr. Mrs. Irene Brew Riverson. Those of you who have been associated with Flash Connect, you know her. You know her. She delivers. I mean, every one of our speakers are exceptional in their own special way. So next month we have Dr. Irene Riverson, and she is speaking on doing your best work where you are, doing your best work where you are. And don't forget that this year our theme is from where you are to where you are going. So everything that we are doing each month is building on what we have learned already. Month one, we got clarity. Month two, we got consistency. Month three, we're dealing with skills. And now this time we are dealing with, prioritizing, managing our time and not getting burned out. So on our journey from where we are to where we are going, we don't have to get burnt out. If you get burnt out or get burnt out, then you cannot, get to your destination. So everything is actually helping us, taking us from where we are to where we are going. And we believe in and we are confident that by the end of the year, we would have learned so much and would have been where we wanted to be at the beginning of the year. So please take note, 31st of May, Sunday, 31st of May, we have Dr. Irene Riverson. She's a lecturer, a senior lecturer at Westminster Business School. That's where I studied actually. That's where I did my Master's of Business Administration. And she's speaking to us on doing your best work where you are. And I want to entreat you when the flyers come out, do us a favor, share it with your friends, share it on all the platforms that you have. Do put it on your status, put it as your uh, DP, and let's encourage more and more people to connect and benefit from this insightful messages that we are receiving that are helping us, to shape our lives and to help us, get to where we are going from where we are. So I would invite my brother and my friend to give us his closing remarks, and then we'll end the session for today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you all for participating in today's session and giving me this opportunity to add to our self-development theme of this year. And so just to go over what I've shared with you, strategies, set boundaries, learn how to say no, prioritize the task that comes your way, and most important, sleep. Sleep, have good rests. You might think time, I haven't got the time, but try and sleep, and cut off social media where you can. Reduce your screen time. Yeah. So
Mm.
those will be what I like to end on. I'll end
Thank
with.
you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cozy. We appreciate you so much. Um, I appreciate everything you've shared with us. And I believe that we are all going to pick at least one thing that we are going to do differently as a result of the information we have received today. That is what will make the difference. It's not enough to just connect and listen, go away and do nothing. Let's go and do something different. At least pick one thing that you are going to do differently. And I think Thomas has put something interesting here. Where he says lazy people will not work no matter the material support you give them. They are full of excuses.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting one.
Yeah, I think that the
So
definition of lazy, yeah, of laziness.
thank you very much for sharing that one. God, thank you once again. God bless you so much
Thank
for
you. Thank you for having me.
Right,
Okay.
and for sharing with us.
All
So
right
I'm
then.
going to stop the recording. All of you, thank you so much for spending your Sunday afternoon, evening with us. And as I said, please do be ambassadors for Flex. Invite more of your friends. Let them be part of this. Let them come and receive these impactful messages and to help their personal development also. At this point, I'll stop the recording and then we would.